Kia ora koutou, ko Andrea Grant toko ingoa, ko ahi tereriria ti whenua tupu, ko Ōtautahi toku kaina ki Aotearoa, he kaipūtaiao hapori aho I Scion. Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Grant. I'm from Australia. Christchurch is my home in New Zealand, and I'm a social scientist from Scion. Navigating conceptual shifts in biosecurity toolmaking practices. I'm here to talk to you today about developing a monitoring and evaluation framework that can support the cultural exchange and learning between mātauranga and science knowledge systems in biosecurity tool research. A framework is a structure for supporting something, often used for helping a situation to change for the better. It can be the basis of a policy and set of practical actions. In this case, we developed a monitoring and evaluation framework for the purpose of navigating conceptual shifts, of working with mātauranga and science-based approaches, and for making practical tools for biosecurity operations. We set out to find approaches to help guide us through bicultural learning, recognizing there are different protocols required for science and mātauranga. Also, that there may be different values underlying biosecurity tool development. Control, Protect, Cure was premised on accelerated development of tools, recognizing the current lack of capacity to respond to plant pathogens causing carrier dieback and myrtle rust. It was part of a new program funded from 2019 to 2023, administered by the Bioheritage National Science Challenges, who was chosen for its innovative approach to co-design and joint science Māori leadership. Extensive consultation was undertaken to scope research capability during 2019 and to bring science expertise alongside mana whenua who were impacted by these plant pathogens. After 9 online hui and more than 60 personal calls, a set of research projects were developed to fast-track existing activity and invest in promising areas to support biosecurity tool development. 8 projects were developed and later accompanied by an integrative theme, Te Whakahononga. Te Whakahononga was designed for working with mana whenua across biodiversity management areas for a nationwide approach to engagement with mana whenua and developing Māori-led cultural protocols for data collection in which data sovereignty could be retained by the people in the areas it was collected. The range of projects, from development of novel sensors to investigation of bioactive elements in native species to cultural monitoring activities, fell within areas of discovery, invention, innovation and translation, which were placed in accordance with how the research co-leads envisaged their position on the innovation pathway, shown here in the graphic on the bottom. The regular structure of the weave suggests that projects flowed from one consecutive step to another. However, the realities of knowledge discovery to tool development can require different timeframes. Leveraging from existing developments can help the process towards achieving desired results or impacts. The range of activities loosely placed on this weave illustrate different points on the research journey. By the end of this presentation, we will show you that the pathway is neither straightforward nor linear. It requires some deeper conceptualization of co-design in biosecurity tool development. Taking a step back in the journey to a previous program, Healthy Trees, Healthy Future, we draw from the triggers document and a set of values informing Te Whakahononga protocols. It was developed during a previous Scion-led MB, Healthy Trees, Healthy Future program between 2013 and 2019. The concept of trigger questions was developed by Phil Wilcox as part of Scion's GMO trial for radiata pine in 2008-9 under the initiative of Te Aroturiki. Te Turiki formed in 2003, specialising in plant gene technologies, and was set up for evaluating research from a Māori perspective. What's notable about this process is that it established a dialogue for conducting research, but it does not demonstrate how the process of research engagement goes beyond the formation of an initial relationship. This is the process that this presentation will address. Waitangi Wood applied the values of the Healthy Trees, Healthy Future to the cultural protocols for Te Whakahonona. Led by Tā Mason Jury's earlier model based on a paradigm of potential, Māori values provide a basis for measuring the relevance and benefit from the research. Designed to allow a comprehensive evaluation from a Māori perspective, it required a document written in non-technical terms and discussion of generic and trigger questions relevant to hapu. So these values include Te Tiriti o Waitangi as the foundation of the program partnership, diverse knowledge systems being recognised and respected as equally valid and useful for ecosystem government. Sharing across knowledge systems must be based on the conviction that a diversity of experience, perspectives and worldviews coming together can craft a suite of solutions. Nurturing, investigating and confirming program methods for learning and exchange. Allowing for spiritual values is important to ensure sustainable biodiversity concerns. Support for differences of worldviews and therefore tikanga decision-making processes and timeframes. Understanding of the agency of Indigenous institutions is critical to all actors within the program. Creating an environment of trust, respect, equity, reciprocity and transparency is indispensable in all sharing across knowledge systems. As part of our planned activities in Control, Protect, Cure, we shared these values with our science teams. This was part of our recognition that scientists need to be culturally aware and sensitive to past and present issues that may affect the success of working collaboratively with mana whenua. Whilst not all of these values may have been present in every interaction, they were part of our project management. With this foundation, we have a basis for evaluating science projects along the innovation pathway from a vision mātauranga perspective. Control, Protect, Cure social science was designed with this view of scientists working with mana whenua to ensure that cultural differences were recognised and responded to, particularly in a way that empowered Māori to be part of the research and to shape the questions and tools being developed to ensure they were culturally appropriate. A social science research model was developed to be able to share the journey and learnings between all parties and teams involved in the projects. So with the goal to fully recognise an equitable share of responsibility, resources and governance, each partner is autonomous but focuses on bringing shared values, initiatives and outcomes for longer term improvement to our world. At this point, as someone new to te reo, I was unfamiliar with the term te ao turoa. I leaned into this term, given it was linked with knowledge and understanding connected with a physical place. Te o Maramara, also known as te ao turoa, the long-standing world, refers to the physical plane of existence that is inhabited by people and is associated with knowledge and understanding. The idea of working across knowledge systems and accepting some conceptual challenges arising from differences in authority or resourcing to realise new developments in tool production were expected. So we looked at processes for biocultural engagement as working with. How do we bring mana whenua up to speed with the science knowledge, and how do we allow for engagement and to ask meaningful questions of our science teams? We have the guidance of the Healthy Trees, Healthy Futures and Te Whakahonona theme via the Triggers document as the preparation for a dialogue on science questions with mana whenua. But then we also need to increase the cultural awareness and sensitivity of our science teams. This is something that our co-leads treated carefully. There was a general awareness amongst our co-lead team of the need to prepare our science teams for working with mana whenua by initiating some cultural sensitivities and developing capability for collaboration. Particular attention was given to ensure that differences in worldviews and ways of knowing were respected. Reflecting on the values underpinning the triggers document required giving up some authority and listening to different areas of expertise and perspectives of others. What we're going to focus on here is the process of leading our science teams in building their relationship with mana whenua, whilst the Te Whakahonona theme worked on the Māori engagement work plan. We designed our process to be able to complement the mana whenua work plan and work through the triggers document in a way that allowed for te tiriti principles and the other values represented by the Healthy Trees, Healthy Futures framework to build throughout the process. Nonetheless, planning and reality don't necessarily match up, and so we paid attention not only to co-design but co-management of projects. As part of this, we needed to increase the cultural awareness of our research partners from the scientific side of the partnership. We progressed to find some situations did not play out in a way that allowed for equal participation of Māori in science or of science in mātauranga. Reflecting on these aspects allowed us to understand what inhibited the growth of the relationships and what helped them to flourish. Not all opportunities for co-design or co-management were within our reach of influence, but for those that were, we reflected on how we might design and manage in future. We hope that our reflections provide meaningful guidance for those who carry on with the work of protecting Kauri and Motesi, and for those who initiate collaborative science and mātauranga research in projects in future. So the triggers document process and mana whenua work plan was achieved and managed through Te Whakahonona, which worked to support Māori engagement across multiple themes, minimising the engagement effort for mana whenua. This was an important interface for facilitating engagement on a range of science topics and issues relevant to the protection of Kauri and Motesi in different biodiversity management areas. The triggers document discussion and cultural authority agreements ensured a consistent approach across themes and equal opportunity for mana whenua to participate in research projects. In what follows, I outline the steps taken from science contributions to the partnership as a means to reflect on processes and evaluation of their effectiveness in meeting the dual goals in technology innovation and delivering mātauranga. Taking the left-hand side of the graphic in the previous slide, this is laying out the 4 phases that we envisaged through the research teams would progress through during the project's development. Not all projects, however, flowed through the process or necessarily came in under this process. Some had existing relationships they worked with, and some, once approved through Te Whakahonona, the Te Whakahonona process, ran their own course of research. All projects, however, went through the first phase as an important step in preparing science teams for working with mana whenua. Phase 1 was achieved through a process of reflection of what was required to prepare our research teams for working with mana whenua. We prepared material for an interactive online workshop and hosted these with our science research teams. This allowed us to work through 3 preparatory steps with our teams. Step 1, engage science teams to inform the whole process. So to appreciate what Ngā Rākau Taki means for their project, we asked our science teams, why are we doing this, what it means for our work, and working through a process of gaining support through a Q&A session and some facilitated discussion about what would be done differently. At the heart of this is the values of working with different knowledge systems and cultural worldviews, showing respect and genuine interest in understanding Māori relationships with place and values. Step 2, identify the provenance of soil samples, cultures, and other materials being gathered. Provenance, we asked our teams why this is important, including provided an explanation and discussion, followed by a facilitated exercise on interconnectivity. Often data is collected through science processes without necessarily appreciating the relationships between local people and their natural environment. By showing respect to people in place, these relationships can be acknowledged and protected. Step 3, identify the earliest opportunity to work with mana whenua. Vision mātauranga classifications are something that are embedded in research proposal processes, but we wanted to know more about where people saw their work fitting, and we also wanted to know where they would like to be in those classifications. So understanding how science research interacts with vision mātauranga takes reflection on what the aims and aspirations of scientists are in relation to Māori vision. In our next steps, we focus on working with mana whenua, understanding Māori objectives, building in timeframes for engagement, and handling engagement and cultural authority agreement. Phase 2 involved the steps of building relationships with mana whenua to strengthen the sense of shared purpose and work towards defining common goals. Step 1, meet with mana whenua. We were unable to fully execute this step with all the groups for various reasons, one of which was travel and access restrictions due to COVID, but other aspects will be reflected on to derive lessons from experience and chart a way forward for future developments. It's important to understand the historical concerns and meet on neutral grounds to allow equity in the relationship development. Step 2, establish relationships. This was accomplished through online engagement, however, limited development of personal relationships. Listening to the articulation of the problem from mana whenua perspectives and sharing personal values and concern are an important part of building relationships. Step 3, identify shared values and define common goals. This was achieved to various extents and depended on prior steps, however was also limited by the extent to which equity in vision and values were achieved. We took a cautious approach to capturing the means to respect the autonomy and integrity of our participants. In order to facilitate future progress in relationship development, our reflections are captured at a general level of awareness to support intercultural exchange. Phase 3 provided guidance for a safe operating environment, including a level of openness where shared aspirations and expectations around how the research would progress. Ideally, this involved site visits and building of a rapport between research and mana whenua teams to deepen their understanding of the research and how new knowledge might be applied. It also provided an opportunity to understand and clarify protocols for specific activities and how they could be met. Step 1, share aspirations and expectations. There were different degrees of existing relationship and familiarity with the sites. For some, aspirations had already been shared through past activities. There was limited influence that the research team had over these existing relationships, and the quality of their progress depended on the partner involvement and confidence in collaboration. Step 2, agree to time horizons and knowledge needs. This needs some flexibility as there are always unexpected things that come up. There was scope within the program to allow for stop-go points in the research if a particular milestone was unable to be achieved. However, these points were set for science delivery and not for relationship development. We reflect on that later on. Step 3, support cultural safety and appropriate activity systems. There are structural and circumstantial aspects that limit the realisation of this. In an ideal world, this would look quite different to what we experienced. Some areas progressed exceptionally well, even if at a slower pace than anticipated, but other areas had insufficient awareness to be able to recognise issues of cultural safety and appropriately designed activity systems. At the heart of experiences were differences in authority over knowledge and what could be done with it. Phase 4 is an implementation phase where scientists and mana whenua are collaborating. This invites thinking about the legacy of projects and how well set up they are to continue in research relationships. For some, there were existing partnerships that were strengthened by this opportunity, and for others, new relationships formed, which we hope will continue to grow. Step 1, ensure sufficient resourcing and required communication. Resources were assigned for mana whenua participation in research, including data collection for some. However, attention to resources for scientists in building relationships with mana whenua were up to the individuals. It's unclear whether the opportunity strengthened partnerships for future collaborations. Step 2, coordination of effort and joint analysis. There is an important legacy that opened up from research engaging with mana whenua, through which intended outcomes or benefits articulating during the triggers document process were expressed. This step allows for reflection on that to see whether the benefit arrived or has progressed. Step 3, ongoing monitoring, ensuring usefulness of outcomes. This allows to define key parameters of impact to ensure that monitoring outcomes can be continued beyond the project. So we ask the questions of what kinds of parameters of impact from new knowledge or tools for controlling, protecting or curing plant disease and their impacts on plants did our teams work with? And how has that new knowledge or tool development enabled new monitoring of changes in the systems affected? For our next steps, we want to know what other opportunities are there for people to work with the tools developed or knowledge gained during this process. We ask ourselves what legacy there are for NRT's control, protect, cure and te whakahonana, and whether there's new capacity within CRIs or within biodiversity management areas, and also what the new possibilities are for DOC or MPI as biosecurity agencies to operationalise research in partnership with mana whenua. At the end of the project, our leadership team, comprising the 2 co-leads and myself as an embedded social scientist, went through a reflective evaluation. A reflective evaluation invites personal assessment of what was learnt through a learning experience. It's a way of supporting a better understanding of key aspects of that experience. In this case, looking back from the start of the program of activities and thinking about the aims and intentions relative to how things played out provided us with an opportunity to capture and document our insights. Our reflective evaluation included 2 sets of interviews with the co-leads and a joint evaluation workshop sharing perspectives and discussing process and outcomes. Reflecting on how things developed also drew on other evaluation tools and processes that were used as part of Ngā Rākau Takitaki, with a focus on what parts of the story they leave out. Our aim with reflective evaluation was to capture a self-aware assessment of the process and to help others in future to be part of a legacy that empowers partnerships in knowledge development, addresses power imbalances, and recognises the wider benefits of Māori inclusion and participation in biosecurity tool research and development. As a team, we looked back at our projects and where they sat within the placement of science and mātauranga-led activities, which also lists the aims for each project. Not all projects were expected to continue for the full 3 years, and a few had stop-go points to allow for some pivoting to new directions of research. Although not stated as an aim, this did allow for new promising relationships to be developed where potential for increasing capability or application for mana whenua was clear. New projects were added and some discontinued, leading to a few different trajectories for the set of theme projects. We mapped how far they travelled through the innovation pathway and reflected on what this means for our framing of research. Having a schematic view of project timelines does make it appear as if all things progress at the same pace, which was not accurate. Projects progressed at different rates. During our reflection, we needed to capture the real value of progress at different rates for different projects. Building on the earlier work of Te Aroturuki with Phil Wilcox and colleagues and the Healthy Trees, Healthy Future program, in setting up the process for dialogue with mana whenua through Te Whakahonanga, we needed some assistance for evaluating our progress with technology development. We looked to some other tools that could help us with technology readiness as well as delivering mātauranga. Here we have technology readiness levels that has been developed by NASA, identifying 9 steps through which technology innovation takes place. It's a linear process that starts with basic principles that are then developed into a technology concept, which needs to be proven before progressing to laboratory, then simulated, and then field validation. A flight or operational test is then used to demonstrate the tool in action, and finally, a successful mission accomplished when the technology does what it was designed for. The set of projects had different starting points, where some leveraged from existing work and were supported to progress through to different stages of development. Our diagnostic tools, for example, were at earlier stages of technology readiness. Some with basic principles already developed, and others where the technology concept was just emerging. Allowing for pivots in these early development projects was important for them to progress to validation. Mātauranga projects, including development of bioactives, also drew on some existing knowledge, as did the Cultural Monitoring app. Small investments in seed and scope projects drew on existing knowledge and progressed tools to field validation or prototype development. Even though the program developed on the initiative of Te Aroturuki and drew from the legacy of Healthy Trees, Healthy Future to build the formal basis for cultural authority agreements and trigger discussions of Te Whakahonanga, there was no process for ongoing evaluation of collaborations between science and mātauranga teams. To better articulate the process of research development for our evaluation, not just in science, technology and innovation, but alongside mātauranga and meeting Māori aspirations, we used and adapted existing tools. As noted, we used the technology readiness levels developed by NASA, which was considered alongside a tool adapted from a review and implementation of Vision Mātauranga in the Science for Technology Innovation programs of the National Science Challenge. We recognise that this gap in monitoring and evaluation to support our ability in delivering Vision Mātauranga needs to be more widely considered and led by our Māori partners. We required some starting point for evaluation of our own efforts and projects. And thus we drew upon this delivery of Vision Mātauranga developed in the SIFTI National Science Challenge. The SIFTI program has identified 9 areas into which Vision Mātauranga was being delivered, which we used as a proxy to evaluate our own progress on this. Whilst not designed for this purpose, it gives us a starting point to invite a further conversation around how well our projects delivered into Vision Mātauranga. It allowed for us to reflect on the projects within Control, Protect, Cure and start to consider what types of things could be built into an evaluation of how well we delivered Vision Mātauranga. The 9 elements from the Science for Technological Innovation National Science Challenge included leadership, ensuring a Te Ao Māori view is embedded, resourcing, activities and capacity are appropriately funded, capability training, researchers are supported to incorporate Vision Mātauranga in their work, VM project processes are reviewed to ensure that Māori aspirations are met, Māori-led research, technically or culturally innovative projects are Māori-led, realising Māori aspirations, upcoming researchers, communities or organisations are able to lead future projects. Māori data sovereignty. Resourcing contributes to data practices that enable Māori to achieve beneficial outcomes and maintain the mana of Māori data. Roika Mangai, coordinating and working with other Māori initiatives for guiding future change across the nation. Partnership and co-design. Opportunities are sought for collaboration internationally with other Indigenous organisations, Māori and or Pacifica. We hope to continue this conversation with mana whenua and our theme collaborators to see whether we can develop a better guide and evaluation tools for developing vision mātauranga in future. Some of our projects worked independently with mana whenua, leaving us with some uncertainty on whether they were resourced or not. Others were only effective in delivering training, whilst almost all developed in partnership with Māori organisations, even if they were not led by Māori, following a VM project process or realising Māori aspirations. We combined our progress in technology readiness levels with delivering Vision Mātauranga into a matrix that shows how each of our projects fared in the process of development. So instead of asking ourselves how far had the projects progressed down the implementation pathway or innovation pathway, we looked at technology readiness levels and delivering Vision Mātauranga as steps towards higher levels of impact in the domains of science and innovation alongside Māori Mātauranga capability development. As you can see, some of our projects achieved higher levels of implementability whilst others achieved their aims, such as the seed and scope and small investments, with only small investments. We noted that this delivering Vision Mātauranga is a proxy borrowing from the developments of SIFTI, and some of the delivery is met through higher levels of leadership and engagement, including leadership, resourcing, VM project process, and guiding future change. Whilst we've mapped the projects to the best of our knowledge, these projects may have reached further than we could account for, and in no way do we suggest this evaluation is definitive. It's used to demonstrate an area of need and start the process of furthering such a monitoring and evaluation framework for science and mātauranga, collaborative design of tools for biosecurity. And with that, a wrap up and quick thank you to acknowledge Dave Milner and Marion Wood and the whole team of researchers and mana whenua drawn into the Control, Protect, Cure theme. Thanks also to the organisations that funded the research and from where our team developing this evaluation came from. So that's Ngā Rākau Takitaki of the Bioheritage National Science Challenge, funded through MB, Plant and Food Research, Kahu Environmental, and Scion. I'd also like to reference back to Te Aotearoa, or the long-standing world, that refers to the physical plane of existence that is inhabited by people and is associated with knowledge and understanding. Better understanding of the cultures behind knowledge production and the norms and values underpinning that will help us in future endeavours to collaborate in knowledge generation for the environments and species we all care about. Thank you all for listening.